Hello and welcome to the Spooky Chris podcast. I am the aforementioned Spooky Chris Ringler, uh, and this is my little podcast. I am an author, podcaster, movie reviewer, ne'er do well. I was lucky enough to speak to filmmaker Geno McGahee, kind of about his films and kind of where he started. Geno and I get into it in the podcast, but met because of a review I did. I did a review of an early film of his, and I was absolutely ruthless in it, and embarrassingly so. And he was thick-skinned enough that he reached out and thanked me for the review, and we hit it off as friends, and we have been friends since then. And I wanted to get a chance to speak to him. He is someone who you can look on Tubi, and he has a whole ton of movies on there that he has either written or directed, and just his process is fascinating, and his story is fascinating. So I invite you to give a listen, and I thank you as always. And now here is my chat with Geno McGahee.
Thank you for making time. I appreciate you.
No, it's my pleasure. I'm glad we can finally talk. It's we've never spoken before, so this is quite awesome for me.
So I will introduce you now. I'll have you pronounce your last name so I don't, because I think I know how it's pronounced, but I don't want to mispronounce it. So,
McGahee.
I would have mispronounced it then. Okay,
Mo-
great.
Most people do.
Well, Geno, thank you for joining me on the podcast. I will do a bumper in the beginning of this so people kind of have more frame of reference. But you are a filmmaker. That is how you and I met, which I thought it would be prudent, frankly, to shame myself, as I like to do, by how we met.
It's awesome.
Well, no, I think it's more about see, I am not as thick-skinned as you are, obviously, because I would have been very upset. So you and I met because many years ago, I was working at a screen print shop, and we all would watch movies and stuff there, and we watched your film. Oh my gosh,
Rise of the Scarecrows.
yes, I was like scarecrows. Why is it? Yeah, Rise of the Scarecrows. And I thought I was just the coolest kid in town, and wrote up a quick review on my blog, and was extraordinarily mean-spirited about it and very mean-hearted about it. And you were kind enough to reach out and say, "Oh, well, I appreciate your honesty. Thank you."
Well, at that time, Chris, I like Rise of the Scarecrows. Well, I filmed it when I was in my early 20s, and I didn't expect it really to get anywhere. But before I knew it, I had a distribution deal that went to Netflix when they launched their streaming, and CBS did an article saying it was a sequel to the 1988 Scarecrow. So
Ah,
so before you even reviewed it, I was getting hammered. And at first, I was like kind of taken back. I was younger and I was like, people don't understand what I had to do to even make this movie possible. But with your review particularly, I found a lot of humor in it, and I live by the sword because I review movies too. So it was kind of like it'd be silly of me to be upset for your honest opinion, no matter how you wrapped it up. Um, I just got to take and say, what did he see that needs to be improved? And at that point, just about everything did. So there was never any hard feelings. I laughed. I loved the line that, this proves there is no God. I think that's fantastic. I loved it.
I'm still, that makes me laugh. But like, I'm still very like I would like to think I took that lesson to heart, because and especially since I made movies. I mean, obviously you make features. I made a couple shorts. It's not obviously in the same playground, but it
Mhm.
gives you a better understanding of the cats you have to wrangle, even on a small scale. And I think people forget that very easily. And I know I do, but I try to kind of keep it in mind when I review. is that unless it's there, because there are definitely movies that are very cynical, and you can tell that they were just like, like what will get us enough views or whatever so we can make money on this. And those I
Yes.
don't have, I have no, at least internal mercy for, but so
I, I'm I, I'm in the same boat with you, Chris. Not to cut you off, I'm sorry.
no, no, no.
Um, but like I see if there's heart in something, if there's a storyteller behind it, production value means little to me. But a lot of times, especially in independent horror, you get these guys that their only goal is to get attractive women to take off their clothes, and
Yes,
most of the time,
yes.
yeah, and most of the time you'll see written by, directed by, starring so and so, just so they can be in a position to make out with attractive women, which would never happen in a billion years anywhere else. And for me, I'm like, this just needs to go away because I love storytellers. I love people that have heart, even if they can't, if the execution isn't there, I still see it, because I used to buy like those 50 packs of like brain damage movies,
Oh yeah.
and I would watch those. And even though, a lot of them did fall into that category, like 10% fell into the category of this is a guy who has something to say, and it's not about ego. It's just about he's got something in his heart, and so that I can get behind. But I'm with you because I know so many independent filmmakers, I won't name names, that just make me want to puke in my shoes. And like good, bad, or indifferent with my work is always coming from the heart. I'm a storyteller, and regardless of like execution, like with Scarecrows or some, especially my early work, I still think people can look at it and say, Geno is trying to tell a story here, even if it gets muddled along the way.
Well, and I think there's a difference between people that will, and I think that's a rare good. Well, I mean, there's a lot of good things with streaming and stuff. I shouldn't say, but like a very, very good thing is that with streaming and home viewing, audiences have changed because I think our expectations are different. Like we will watch a movie casually, where it's like if it entertains us or we kind of get a laugh out of it, or kind of like it's just it's unoffensive, like we can get something from it. Whereas, you go to the movies and stuff and you spend a bunch of money, you're a lot more like, oh, I hate this. This is stupid. But I think
Sure.
a lot of people streaming stuff have, more open minds. Um,
I
just
agree.
to,
I agree with you. And I do to a point, I suppose that there is, I see like a lot of like posts that say, we want no budget horror. We want low budget horror, all this kind of stuff. And I always think it's the same person that will hit me up and say, oh, I could see you spent nothing on the mask or whatever they say. And I'm like, what? I don't understand like what it takes for a person just say, I'm gonna email the filmmaker directly and say, you suck. Like with a like with you with you had a your blog, just like I have my website where we're at least giving a review. But sometimes I get some really, you'd be surprised, Chris, at the mean-spirited emails I get sometimes. It's like, wow, should I lock my doors?
well, sadly, I'm not surprised because people are just very, again, I think we love to cast aspersions and stuff, but, without knowing, what it takes to do this stuff. And I think filmmaking is a really, I mean, having a band would be tough too, but filmmaking, I mean, truly, people don't appreciate even on the lowest, most indie level,
Hmm.
how many people you have to get, like your schedules to align and all of these things and equipment, all of this stuff. And even if you're not paying anyone, like you're
Yep.
still like, if you're not a total scumbag, you're going to be mindful of people's time and not to waste it, and that you're going to try to take care of them as much as you can. And it's just,
Yes.
the end product may not come out as you hoped, but like, people don't fully appreciate how much blood, sweat, and tears it takes to make these things.
No, and even like we brought up Rise of the Scarecrows, and I'll talk about that a little bit because like initially, like I said, when I started getting hit with that, kill yourself, walk into traffic, and but I was getting more negative feedback from other independent filmmakers telling me, hang up the camera, why are you in this game, and all this kind of stuff because I am a self-taught guy. I'm the
Same, yeah, same.
yeah, and I was learning as I went. And so with when I shot scarecrows, I wasn't using actors. I was using strictly people I knew and people they knew. And I can't tell you how many times I changed the screenplay. And I still keep it to this day because I sharpied out so many lines because I was so young and inexperienced. I was kind of afraid to say, hey, no, we need to do it this way and you need to show up. And so you remember in Scarecrows with that character Sleazy Mike, the one that beats the woman with the phone and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That was never a character in the script because he's the only one that showed up that day. And so I was like, what the freaking hell am I going to do? I got to do something. This guy showed up. I sat on my front step, Chris, and I wrote a scene. And then I wrote another scene. And before I knew it, the film became something completely different than what I anticipated. The original scarecrows, which were, and I'm not fat shaming my scarecrows, but my original scarecrows were 6'5" and thin and gangly, and they didn't show up. So the day of the shoot with the scarecrows, I had to run out and find people. And so in the end, there was a part of me, well before your review, of me reading these things and these comments saying, you have no idea what I went through to make this movie. But then again, the emphasis is on the filmmaker to make it happen. But Scarecrows was a disaster to make. I vowed never to film again after it. I was so, upset with it. But when I got distribution and it went crazy, I was like, well, I got to go back to it. And that's when I did Family Secret. And that was a big step up, even though I think I was still super raw. But at the time, I'm like, eat that, everybody. I got you. I got you now. I just created something fantastic. And when I started getting the same reactions, I realized that you're always gonna face negativity. I just made Scary Tales Dark Walker, as you know, and I feel it's my best, at least highest end production. I really focused. I put basically all I can afford right now is ramen noodle soup after putting everything into this film, and I'm hoping it does good and it's doing good. But it's I still get like people hitting me up now, saying, "Oh, the aliens look like shit" and all this kind of stuff. On my budget, Chris, which was essentially like 16 grand, I'm, you know, make a film on 16 grand, uh, and try to make it work. It's very difficult, as you know, and but I still think Dark Walker is awesome. But I think that about a lot of my films, so I'm not really objective.
Well, I mean, the heart in your movies comes through for sure. But so to circle back, how did you start making movies? And like, especially for someone who, as you said, you're like kind of self-trained. So how did you get to make movies?
Well, I was 12 years old, and my parents had purchased a VHS loaded camcorder, and it sat in the closet forever, just collecting dust. And I'm a writer by nature. That's in my blood. I've been doing it since I could hold a pen. And so one day I was watching, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not. There's a film called Galaxy Invader by Don Dohler.
Oh
Um,
no.
Oh, you should check it out. It's super low budget, super fun, lots of heart. And I picked it up at a video store and I'm watching it at 12 years old and I'm like, this is really cool, but I had never seen a film like that. Everything I saw was polished and was very sharp. And so that's right when I made my first short film with my buddies. Would basically was just me kicking my buddies who are dressed like aliens in the nuts. So, but I was 12, so cut me some slack. But time would go on. I'd make like countless like short films with my buddies, and then I got a job at a video store. And the video store would put out these magazines, and the magazines were for like the video store owners, but give you tips. And it said if you want to make it in film, make a low budget, shot on digital horror film. And I thought to myself, oh shit. And I was like 20 at the time. I just bought a digital video camera, very low end, but it's digital. You can't take that away from me. And I said, I'm gonna make a feature. And I got my buddies together and I said, I want to make a feature film. And they're like, let's just keep making a short film. It features a lot of work. I'm like, we can do it, let's do it. And that's what led to Evil Awakening. And then we piggybacked Rise of the Scarecrows right after it. And then that was 2004. And I had a very close buddy of mine tell me, don't get your hopes up. You don't get your hopes up. You'll never get them distributed. And that was the fire, Chris. I said, I'm going to make it happen. And long story short, I used to work for a boxing publication, and I used to want to interview the bigger boxers, and I couldn't get to them. So I started interviewing their agents because I figured if the agent liked me, then I'd get them. So I basically made that. I applied it to like distributors. I started interviewing distributors instead of sending them my work, and then eventually I said to one of them, "Hey, I got two films. You want to check them out?" And thankfully, that's how I got my start into actually like the at least the regular stream of film, and then just a series of fortunate incidents have put me in a decent position to where my films do pretty good. I'm actually shocked at some of the numbers of some of my films. I'm like, it's really crazy to think how many people have seen my films, and I guess when I'm only getting 5 or 6, hey, go kill yourself emails, it ain't too bad considering how many people see them.
I mean, I guess it's an awful thing to think, but like I guess they were at least passionate about it enough to like track you down. Like so you made an impact. It's not necessarily the one you wanted, but you made a memorable impact.
Well, yeah, and you know what's cool too, Chris, is that like one, you and I are talking. The fact that you wrote something about scarecrows is awesome, and look where we are now. And I feel the same. There's a gentleman, Max Finsettler. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing his name, but he did a 45-minute like breakdown and rag on the original scarecrows, and I love that too because I think what you and him have in such common is that you have this sarcastic sense of humor, which I can relate to. And I think I saw some like common threads with me and you and me and Max where I'm like, this is, kind of what I would do. So, if you live by this sword, you got to die by it. And I actually enjoy when people, as long as they're not malicious, like I
Yeah.
hate when they attack my cast. That's the only thing that upsets me is when they like especially like my actresses. That some people have said some negative things about my actresses, and that's when I get fighting mad. But as far as a film goes, as far as my writing goes, as far as any element of production goes, I can take whatever. It doesn't bother me, but certainly, like I don't want to get into what reviewers said it, but they said some mean things about one of my actresses, and she took it to heart, and that bothered me.
That's I've never I don't understand. Like I think if you can say, well, they just didn't, and it sucks. It would be it sucks to like, oh, they didn't do a good job or whatever. But
Yep.
like, if you make it personal, and that's one of those things where it's not even necessarily like it doesn't have to be you are bad. It's just wasn't a great part for you. It didn't come across whatever. But like
Yep.
I understand that people are going to make things personal, like why are they so this? Why do they look like that? That's
That's
like
exactly.
your attraction to them has nothing to do with how successful they are in the film. So like
Yes. And that's dude, you're so right because that's exactly the angle they came at. They came at attacking appearance and making assumptions on what their life was outside of the film stuff. And I'm like Papa Bear when it comes to my people. They just have to call me. I'm not much of a fighter, Chris, but I will be there and I'll do my best. And when they were like just tearing into him because I don't I know like the sequel to Scarecrow, It's Hell on Earth. I know we had audio issues. I'm well aware of that, and that they attacked it, and I was like, I wanted to go over there and shake their hand and said, "You figured it out, thank you." But just attacking just one of my actresses so harshly, I'm like, I wonder where that came from, and I just told her, I'm like, just let it go. We're gonna get that, and just consider it, a compliment they mentioned you. But in my heart of hearts, I'm like that was just mean spirited. You don't say stuff like that, but is what it is. We get these people that want to be an early Howard Stern, and sometimes it doesn't work, and it didn't work then.
yeah, oh yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's one of those things where we are kind of in an echo chamber as far as our interests and our tastes and stuff, and we don't think of things like you mentioned the audio thing. We don't think about the fact that the filmmaker has watched their film, at least, not maybe not as as a film goer, but you in editing and everything else, you've watched all of that footage so many times. You're acutely aware of the issues it has and probably issues that people aren't picking up.
Yes.
And so yeah, you're right. When people are, you know, jamokes like me are like, the audio is not real great. I'm sure you're probably, like you say, like, well, good job. You found exactly what I I knew and I couldn't fix. So great.
Oh, and with Hell on Earth, it was such a kick in the balls, Chris, because not from the review, it was me, myself, and I, because, all right, so I had a very bad experience with this production company that in 2017, where I didn't know the guy who was running it was a multiple time felon and registered sex offender. So he had the whole gambit of great stuff going for him. And we were shooting a Scarecrow movie there. It was going to be the sequel to the original. And I left. It was in Pennsylvania. I left Pennsylvania, came back home, and kind of gave up film. And then I decided 4 years later to do a film and to reclaim my Scarecrows. And so I spent every penny. I spent 16 grand on Scarecrow's Hell on Earth. I got a new lens. I got a new camera. I was ready to rock and roll, Chris. And what did I do in my infinite wisdom? I kept my old boom mic that was like freaking 10 years old, and the low frequencies were shot on it. And so during the filming, when you're listening to it as you film, it doesn't occur to you that it doesn't sound differently until you get to the editing studio and you're like, oh my God, I just spent all this money. I just did all this work. We shot in the freaking mountains. I did everything I could to make it right, and that one thing, and like anything else, Tubi or any other streaming service, if you have screwy audio, you kind of get lost in the algorithm to kind of push you down. And so Scarecrow's Hell on Earth, it did good. It got like 500,000 views, which I'm happy with, all things considered. But I think had I had my head screwed on straight and said, hey, gee, why don't you take $200 and just buy a new boom just to be safe? uh it would have been so much better, would have done so much better. But I was so focused on, okay, we got to make masks, I got to get the sheriff hat, I have to do this, have to get my gore team all set. It was kind of an unfocused effort, but I've improved since. And it was a lesson learned, and I don't regret it, because I had a great time and met so many people. But I just know I have to think more when I make a production, because it was that one thing that screwed me.
Well, and I've told you about this. Like, there's also the alt, the other end where, um, some friends and I, that we knew a guy. We would get together and just kind of like a bunch of us and talk movies and stuff. And he was like, "Oh, we should all make a movie together." And we're like, "Okay." And
Hmm.
so it was going to be an anthology, and I wrote a part, and a friend of mine wrote a part, and then this other guy wrote a part, and he's like, "Do you want to direct your part?" And I'm like, "Well, no, man, it's your movie. I wrote this and I shot my stuff, and I had a like an FX gag that was dangerous, and I'm like, I'm gonna do that on myself because I don't, if somebody gets hurt, it's my fault, so I'd
Sure.
rather do it." But he had like a separate audio guy who was doing all the audio, and he had like lighting people, and he had all of these, and it was funny because as he bought a camera, like shooting, basically kind of what I have. At least I have a Canon that shoots film, but something like
Hmm.
that. But he had no idea. He went to film school. He had no idea how to use it.
Oh, wow.
Every like we used my handy cam for like all my stuff I shot for him. I used my
Hmm.
handy cam. So I don't even know if the footage he would have had to put a filter on it or something if it would have matched up. But he at one point told one of my friends that, like, because he wouldn't run camera. And in my mind, so when I make movies and stuff, like, and again, this is just I always did it. Wanted to shoot it because that's in my mind how I'm directing it. Like, I didn't
Y-
make oh, I didn't do any sketches or anything. I'm like, I wrote it all, but I'm like, me physically shooting it is how I'm directing it.
Yep,
Um,
I can relate.
so that's, I want that control. And he was like, "No, I'm a director. I don't do that. Like, that's not my job. Like, that's somebody else does that." It was like, "Oh, okay." And I mean, and again, on higher levels, well, yeah, that happens a lot. But it was just lots of arrogance. We found out he he basically was making this. He begged, borrowed, and stole money from his family to make this movie because he kept promising, "Oh yeah, I'm going to put it on streaming and make all this money." And that's when I kind of was talking to you and stuff. I'm like, gosh, he doesn't even understand how infinitesimal the return is
Yep,
per X amount of views, and I don't think anybody understands that.
they
But like,
don't.
no one ever marked the footage or the sound. So he was like handed it all off after we shot most of the movie. He handed it off to a friend of mine to edit.
Oh,
And the guy would have had to go through all of the audio and try to pair it with all of the video. And we were just like,
oh.
no. I was like, no, that's his job. Like, make him do that. And it was just, and he abandoned the project. Like
Oh
and
my.
he had probably 15 to 20 of us working on this thing, like day and night. And just that's why I finished my first movie, is like, because I had to recast the whole thing and I had to rewrite the whole thing in the middle of the stream and change all the stuff. And I didn't want to quit because all of these people had, for no money, had done this on
Yep.
good faith, and to like not even have a disc to hand them, like, oh hey, you're in this movie, like felt like such a betrayal. I had to finish it, good, bad, or ugly.
No, that's a testament to you, and it's actually a reflection on the whole business because I can't tell you how many people work with me now that have been involved in multiple projects that were never finished. And on top of that, they're dealing with these douchey guys that think they're Spielberg. And it's like the minimum that you owe your cast and crew is a some sort of end result, whether it's
Yeah.
streaming, whether it's disc. It has to be completed, and that's the big thing. Like I usually in my crew, I love my crew to death. I always wish they were here so I can give them a hug. Because I tell them, like during the Hell on Earth, I'm sorry that's not performing like I wanted to, and they were, just saying, don't be sorry. They were happy that it was completed, that it was in the market. And sometimes I lose track of that because I want people walking away from my films, the actors and the crew to say, I had a great time and look what we did. I'm one of those underdog guys. I'm a Rocky fan. So the fact that other filmmakers that were film school kids told me to give up, and the fact that scarecrows was raked under the over the coals and all this kind of stuff. I like being the guy to just say, hey, we came from the bottom and we moved to the top. I kind of want to see how far we can go. That's my big motivation, Chris. I'm not money motivated. I'm too old to be money motivated anymore. I just want to see how far we can go. Can we crack it? And that's what I want my cast and crew to see. I want them to get some bright lights and if not a red carpet, some carpet of color thrown down for them and just, get that benefit. But my point is I'm on the same page with you. You got to treat your people right.
Yeah. And I think I had gone to the World Horror Con in 2005, and I had my eyes opened up because it was a writers convention. Meeting these people that like they have fans, they have like they are very popular authors and stuff, but they have day jobs. And I think we don't realize that the Stephen Kings of the world are very few, like
Yeah.
professional directors that all they do is make movies, and they make these big high concept movies, are extraordinarily few. But like you, and you're very thankful for this, but you are a working filmmaker, but you are making movies like you would last year. So they had you gotten flown out west to make two
Yes.
movies. And like, to some people they might not, like, oh well, who cares? I'm like, and to me, I'm like, that's amazing, because that's like, I mean, and obviously understand it too. It's like, that is just like, that's a level, like I've only made a couple things, but like I would never, I mean, even if I were to focus on film, like I'd never reach that. So that's amazing.
Well, thanks. And it was crazy, Chris. We I work for Cinema Epic, and we had talked about maybe going down there for a while, but when I talked to my cast, Eric McCallion and Lori Bacon and Brent Northup about going to California and shooting there was some like I think skepticism, because they've dealt with filmmakers that have given them a line, and I meant it. So, but to fly in, Chris, and to fly over the Hollywood sign and to see the Nakatomi building from Die Hard, 'cause I had never been there, and then to go into like these big warehouses with all these sets, it was probably the most anxiety I've ever had in my life, but it was so rewarding to sit. There's a restaurant called Lazy Dog. It became our place, and we just when we got done with the first movie, Fatal Justice, just getting a couple bottles of wine and toasting at this victory that this ragtag group of New Englanders, these film guys, some of us gave up film, like Lori gave up film. She came back for Scarecrows as like her last film because her and I have been cool for so long. And for us now to be at this point where now we're sitting in Hollywood and we're being driven around and it's all expenses paid, it was crazy. And it was something where, no matter what, it can't be taken away. And like you said, it's just a crazy situation because I never thought it would happen and it happened. And I'm like, it's something, I can hang my hat on.
And that's amazing. So I'm trying to be mindful of, because we're doing this on Zoom, and as much as I want to talk to you about it, it's the big thing said 10 minutes. So I want to talk to you. Have you ever gotten your movies on physical media, or do you care about that at all, or is you kind of just like the world moved on from that, or
You know what? Thankfully, we're turning back to it. Like
yeah,
I can't announce what's happening right now, but you will see my films in a lot of places you may not expect them in the near future. But for now, SRS Cinema is putting out a lot of my horror films on Blu-ray.
awesome,
Yeah, so Scary Tales Dead Zone is coming out. Scarecrow's Hell on Earth is out. Um well, what's the other ones? Oh, Amityville Emmanuel, Amityville Cop, which I wrote both of those. Those are out on Blu-ray. So if anyone goes to SRS Cinema on just Google it, you'll find my movies. And I think Amityville Cop is awesome. And of course the Scarecrow movie I would recommend. But yeah, my movies are starting to come. Anyone that goes to SRS Cinema and types in my name, they'll find my movies on Blu-ray. And when I can announce the rest, I'll certainly announce the rest. But some surprising cool things are happening.
that's amazing. So how does that feel like having it out like that, or knowing it's coming out like that? That's got to be a great feeling.
It's fantastic. It's something I've not done director's commentary in such a long time. And I did it for Dead Zone, and I did it with Eric McKellion for Scary Tales Dark Walker. And
Awesome.
so yeah, man. So it's cool as hell. It's such a, because realistically, like before I returned to film in 2021, I don't want to say I was dead inside, but artistically I was dead inside, and being like reborn into film and meeting all these people and doing all this crazy journey I'm currently on, it's like the best thing in the world. So the coming to Blu-ray and all this other cool stuff is just icing on the cake. Right now I tell my cast and crew that we've already won. Now everything's just a perk at this point. We've already, things are going like Dead Zone got 2.2 million views. That's a shit ton of stadiums, Chris. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
that's amazing. So before I end up having to lose you, anything that you're working on next, or are you thinking about anything next?
Yeah, I'll say it quickly. I am filming. I put out Scary Tales a series. I'm doing season two, but I'm doing a comedy that I'm super excited about. It's a very much like a Freddy Got Fingered meets Step Brothers sort of thing. So it's not for kids, but it's from my twisted mind. So anyone anyone that wants a drinking movie or wants to laugh, I think they're gonna laugh. It's got all kinds of crazy stuff going on in it. So the comedy's filming next fall, and I'm writing a few other things that are being produced by my company. So, yeah, there's always going to be something, Chris. I'm going to keep on working. I always say go big or go broke, and we'll figure out which one comes first.
Now, how can people track you down, your films down? Because I know a lot of the stuff's on Tubi, but how do they track you down and your review site?
They can come to scaredstiffreviews.com. That's my review site. They can also find me on Facebook. I'll gladly friend anyone that likes me, or even if they hate me, just want to talk to me. I'm okay with that too. I'm on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm trying to figure out the other stuff too. But Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, scaredstiffreviews.com, and Tubi. Type my name in Tubi. Have a movie night, and I want any response, good, bad, or indifferent, because the way that I learned, Chris, is through that. Like, even if someone tells me you suck and this is why you suck, they're saying it because there's something there they see, and if I don't see it, I don't like people that just say, "Hey, Geno, your movie's a 10 out of 10." I want feedback. Give me feedback. It makes me better, as long as you're not a dick about it.
No, that's fair. I can't thank you enough for making time, Gino. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure to get to know you over the years. Especially because I mean, the Scarecrow review was a long time ago, like 2012, I think.
It was,
So
yeah.
it has been a while, and I appreciate your friendship, and I have loved seeing your filmmaking career blossom. So this has been great. So I really thank you immensely, and I can't wait to see what you have next.
Chris, you're the man. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate the friendship too, and much love to you, my brother.
Absolutely. You take care of yourself. I guarantee we will talk again soon.
I look forward to it.
All right, take care.
You too.
Bye.